even if you are doing okay or doing good, it's still good to get checked. I think that's a big key that should be talked about, because it's always good to know, just know your levels in general, right? I always want to know, how is this happening? Can I optimize something, or should I step back from something? It's just good to always have your blood work done on a constant, regular basis.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're really fortunate to be able to offer that with our folks, and that they can go on our site and choose certain blood labs and have those ordered and have physicians give an interpretation. So it brings sort of empowerment back to the patient.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to DirectCare AI podcast. I'm DaChé Williams, and I'm here with CEO and co-founder Scott Hozebin. Today we're here to talk to you guys about hormones and why you might feel off starting at the age of 35 and older. So, just a quick reminder that this is not medical advice, okay? So please talk to a licensed clinician if you do have any questions about how you may be feeling. So, Scott, let's get into it.
Yeah, I think hormones is one of the most exciting topics, mostly because we just had the US government, both for men and women, come out with radically new positions talking about that for 20 years we've been sort of bastardizing or sort of unfairly making it negative, that men taking testosterone would have negative outcomes that aren't actually true. For women, I think almost even larger, right? They've been really told that with hormone replacement therapy, with testosterone, that it wasn't helpful with women, could be associated with all kinds of negative consequences, to now come out and say, well, they read the research study wrong. We're talking to so many women that feel so much better after starting hormone replacement therapy.
I 100% completely agree with that. Personally, I have positive remarks about HRT and starting that HRT therapy, just my energy being better, my mood. There's a lot of benefits, and just knowing that we are starting to be backed by the government and starting to release and then putting it in a positive light, I think that really is very helpful for women out there.
Yes, I think it's good to talk about it because it's something that was so underground for so long. I as a man, you go back into the 80s, there was no physician you could talk to about these things. These guys were getting advice from their buddies in a gym. And then it slowly became evolved where you could go and talk to, maybe there's one primary care doctor in town that was read up on it, and, people would recommend that doctor, but it wasn't universal that you could go to it, to now there's clinics like ours and a lot of doctors in person in office that are much more aware of the benefits of testosterone replacement. I think it's pretty interesting that, in men starting around age 30, where, you're losing 1% a year.
Wow.
So it's every year, it's like a ticking clock that your testosterone levels are going down from what's optimum. And then there's a lot of people that just, they're not average. You always hear in medical, they talk about the average person, where no one's the average person. So there's a lot of people who have been clinically low on their testosterone for, say, a decade, and no one's brought it up because they might not have done the blood test. So I think, one of the other things you see that's common is a doctor that's, say, less well-versed might say, oh, well, clinically, say you're 300, you might hear a doctor say, well, you're fine. But it doesn't mean you're optimal. So I think it's an interesting topic in medicine where people are not only looking at what's the minimum to be functional, and then now starting to talk more about that feeling optimal matters.
Just a question that popped in my head specifically for men. Say you are in the younger 30s, how do you know, what are some symptoms to even, testosterone probably wouldn't be the first thing to pop into your head. So are there certain symptoms that you start to feel that make you question it and kind of want to talk to them? Whoa, doc, I feel off, something's wrong. Is there anything that you can do for me? What makes it that initial reaction that makes you think oh, maybe I should go get checked?
Yeah, no, and it's, I've gone through personally, so I give my own personal insights. I think you feel, you notice maybe if you're someone who does go to the gym, all of a sudden you're not feeling as strong and you're noticing it less. I think some of the more subtle common symptoms are just like a little bit of brain fog, or you lose that sort of that drive, you know. Maybe sexually you don't feel as like good in performance, you know. It's just like a small scope of symptoms that are subtle. So I think a lot of people are used to, we go to a doctor when something's broken, but if something works and it's just not optimal, we don't go to the doctor, especially guys, right? Like guys will just keep chugging along until something, we physically can't get out of bed. And I think we've got to really work hard to change that now we have good medicine, it's okay to want to be optimal.
I really like that. I like how you mentioned pretty much, even if you are doing okay or doing good, it's still good to get checked. I think that's a big key that should be talked about, because it's always good to know your levels in general, right? I always want to know, how is this happening? Can I optimize something, or should I step back from something? Is this good to always have your blood work done on a constant, regular basis?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're really fortunate to be able to offer that with our folks, and that they can go on our site and choose certain blood labs and have those ordered and have physicians give an interpretation. So it brings sort of empowerment back to the patient. You know, that everybody should be able to be sort of the CEO of their own care. So we allow that. And like your point, you know, so many people go years without even knowing. I think we were with friends the other day, and right, their wife, we had mentioned it, and she's like, well, I haven't had a blood lab in 10 years, but I felt horrible for all of these years, but I'm chugging along. It seems crazy for a couple $100 test that could instantly tell you something that's plagued you for years. And now, and the reason they didn't is they said, well, I didn't feel like going to the doctor, taking a day off of work. I didn't want to sit around. I didn't feel bad enough to go to that. So I think being able to now offer those types of things with the convenience to empower people to do that is such a big deal.
I would say for me, that the convenience part was super ideal for me. I simply went on, I ordered. Initially, I got my lab sent to me for me to go to Quest at my own time. I scheduled an appointment. I was in and out. Results came back 2 to 3 days. Some maybe took 5 days, but super quick.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing when there's one symptom. You know, sometimes you just felt tired. Maybe you didn't sleep well. But it's more like the cluster of symptoms that should really trigger an aha moment of, I didn't sleep well, have a little bit of brain fog, I've lost some energy, I'm not as sexually active as I was. You know, these cluster of symptoms, now knowing that you can take action, it's like you just shouldn't wait.
I'll be sure to put those links in our description. But also I just want to ask, as a guy, what are the options for TRT? Like, what is the replacement therapy? Is it needles, oral? Like, what are the different options that's out there for the men?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So, you know, I would say the most common is testosterone cypionate, you know, which is commonly used in men and women as well. You know, in men, it's most often an injection, you know, but there's also gel, like androgel. There's just a recently released FDA approved pill that increases testosterone. And I'd say that's the most common. You know, they just, and probably one of the more effective, I would say one of the more effective things has been found with the testosterone injections in the pills. There's other things. So the testosterone, you have low testosterone, you give yourself exogenous or outside testosterone, and then it brings it back up to a level that you feel optimal. You'll see a lot of people talk about, say, 800. You'll see it really common. Someone might be 300 and they shoot to go to 600, 700, 800. And that's really common. But you'll see some folks are just mildly low, or they're really concerned because one of the, taking exogenous testosterone can affect your fertility. So if folks are often super concerned about trying to start a family, you'll see they'll look towards a product called Clomid or enclomiphene. And what that does is stimulate your own body's production of testosterone a little bit more. So that can often just be enough, and it's sort of sometimes a stepping stone to testosterone cypionate, but it's, those are the two most common paths, right? Like, so I would say a lot of folks, because you have a side effect of taking testosterone cypionate where a men's like testicles can get smaller. You can have atrophy. That's a real thing. You can lose fertility and reduce your ability to create children. Those are things that people have to consider. So, some folks say, hey, I'd rather take the enclomiphene where it doesn't affect testicular size or affect, their ability and fertility. So, those are the things to research when you are reading and making a choice.
So for a guy, realistically, what can they expect, and maybe like how fast? Like, what is the process and time frame if someone does start that TRT process?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's in a lot of things in medicine, right? Like there's some things are immediate, but most things, especially, in a lot of hormone replacement therapy, it takes time for the body to get to these optimal levels, and it fixes sort of the biofeedback process. So I think most folks start to notice maybe some slight energy improvements in a few weeks. More commonly you start to really notice things around a month. Within that, in the month 1, month 2, people really start to see, okay, I didn't realize how bad I felt. Because I think that's the most common, right? Like I know I was low and then I started, and then, a couple months in and you're going, you don't realize how low you feel until you feel the way you were supposed to. And then it really triggers and you're going, wow, I must have been low for years or a decade. So I think it's really that, anywhere, and some effect in 2 weeks, some effects, 4, 8 weeks, out to 12 for the full effects. I mean, how about you on the women's hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah, for me, I definitely agree on more of the long term. After starting HRT therapy, I'll say immediately with the progesterone, immediate. Night 1, good sleep, deep sleep. And I felt, when I woke up in the morning, very alive, rejuvenated, and I actually felt like I got a good night's rest. And that was the first time in a very long time, maybe about 5 years, where I felt actually well rested. And after starting now, I get to go to the gym at that 5:30 in the morning, start to run. I have enough energy to do that. I get to bed on time. So that has definitely been an immediate game changer for me. And for the long term, after starting the cream with the testosterone, I would say, between, I felt a little bit longer, but stuff started to come back. So maybe 3 months on a steady, every day, taking it constantly. And now within a year, you definitely see there is a jump. It takes that dedication and truly doing it daily to feel a reaction. So you definitely have to stay committed and wanting to do it, and you definitely will feel that energy boost. Just positive outlook on every day. And in the gym, my body feels a lot better. I'm not as sore. I can do a lot more than I used to. I can lift, my bones are feeling better. In my arm, I can lift weight, I'm feeling stronger. So it's definitely been a game changer for me in the long term.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's, it can even take up to 6 months, say, for, things to stabilize. That's where okay, things are stable. And then I think, especially in older populations, some of the concerns are around bone mass. So these are some of the things I think on the younger end we don't think about because we don't experience bone loss as much, where it becomes a major issue in elderly. And I think it's one of the areas that hormone replacement therapy is probably an underserved population because we all know there's bone loss and increased risk for fractures, and that's where this increased muscle mass, you need weight-bearing activity, you need to increase protein, optimal testosterone levels is part of that program, and that may take a year, to build up that muscle, and then when they see the changes in bone density. But these are sort of well-studied benefits, especially in older populations where, some of the largest risks for death are hip fracture. So the more we can have, which makes sense, right? Like your muscles are stronger, you can stabilize your core better, take care of yourself, becomes really important. And, they find, I think it's over 50%, over 80, over 50% of men have low testosterone. So it's not that it's a rare occurrence. It's almost more common than it is uncommon.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like a question that popped up in my head that I kind of want to talk about, and it's out there. On the woman's side, like for a lot of us, I didn't know what perimenopause was. I always heard menopause, but I always thought the age of like 50, getting older. So for me, I had to learn about perimenopause. I was definitely on the younger side, but I've learned that it can start in your 30s. So that was a new thing for me, kind of to get adjusted. Like, well, one, I thought my initial mental reaction was like, is there something wrong? What's wrong? How can this happen so early, so young? But two, that there was treatment out there. So I think that was the biggest positive shift, knowing that this is something that can be worked on, it can be fixed, it can be helped. And I think that's something for everyone to know, to seek and look for help, because there is options out there for us, and you're not broken, you can get help, and you're not the only one going through it, even if you are younger.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to talk through. I mean, you have both sides. It's almost like the in a lot of things that are hormone related, there's both parties. You know, if you're in a relationship, it's not sort of a one-party system. There's both sides that are impacted, right? So it's very interesting thinking through, you know, both sides, men and women. You know, on the men's side, if you're low, you know, there's things you'd want the women, maybe it is your partner that's going to recognize this stuff first, you know, with say like reduced sexual activity or initiation, loss of motivation to do things. So it's kind of interesting to like talk through that, right? Like, you know, what do you wish like your partner would know about perimenopause, or what do you think men should know about, you know, when their wife or girlfriend has perimenopause, which, like you said, it can happen in your 30s. And a lot of people aren't thinking about it really as if it only happens in your 50s and 60s. So there's these subtle changes that probably a woman doesn't even know. And then she's getting flack from, say, her husband. Oh, what's going on? You're not being as intimate. You're not initiating. Oh, you're sleeping all the time. And they're thinking, I'm just being me. There's no problem. You know, what do you think about that? Like, what would you know, say to men and women around those things?
As far as the man's side, I would just say lead with grace, patience, and then kindness, because one, from the woman's aspect, she really doesn't know what she's going through if she hasn't been necessarily, you know, diagnosed, treated, got the blood work. She doesn't know that she's low. So she's already in a bit of confusion, not feeling well, not sleeping, already irritable. So she's going through her own emotions to process already. So then now you're in a relationship, so you have to balance that. Maybe you have children, so now you have family, you have a relationship, you have yourself that you're dealing with. So it's just a lot of mixed emotions and different things swirling all at once in the same circle. So for the man, I'll just definitely say like the grace, but it takes understanding, because you don't know. If she doesn't know, then you definitely don't know. So she may not know how to necessarily put it out in words. So it takes time, I think, both of you to sit down, try to understand, try to get her to, as best as she can, to explain how she's feeling, what she's feeling, encourage her to get the blood work if she hasn't got it done, just to see. So that way you guys have facts, data to go off of and work together and work through it. That kind of leads to a solution. At least you start to find what the truth is behind how is your body feeling. Oh, this is low, your iron is low. Maybe you start taking some supplements that might help you sleep better, that might give you more energy, that might get you deeper sleep. So I think you gotta get to the concrete facts first, then that can lead you to the conversation and kind of help guide the relationship to be able to speak together and try for both of you to understand each other, understand his side too. You know, that's definitely a side to make sure you're key and aware of during that transition.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear you, it's, you know, I think of both sides. It's like on the women's side, you know, there's really a key importance to being open to the feedback from their husband or boyfriend, to, you know, not have that knee-jerk response of like, he's just being a jerk and saying something. Maybe they're saying it and it's actually true. I should investigate this. So it's, you know, on the women's side, being open to realizing, hey, something is different, not just sort of defending it. And then on the men's side, I think it's, you know, being able to say this with a bit of grace. You know, men can often be gruff, right? And just be like, what the heck, I'm not, you know, you're not touching me, I'm gonna go somewhere and get something. and it's super inappropriate, versus like, hey, would you like to go to the doctor together? Hey, I'd love, if you're interested, I found this site that could do blood labs, and, not that anything's wrong, but maybe you just check so we at least can rule out that any of your blood labs are off. And that could go a long way just on the way that the insights are delivered.
Yeah, I would say definitely the way the message comes across. So it just leads me back to the grace. Everyone's in the same battle. You guys, you live together every day. You guys know each other's true hearts. You kind of know that personality, so you know how to approach your partner for that situation. So definitely just know each other, know how to talk to maybe bring it up, and then find that time in your day to sit together and try to come up with some conclusions.
Yeah, and it's vice versa, right? I imagine there's the opposite is going on as well. There's women that are upset that maybe on the men's side he's not getting as hard as he used to. He's not as vigorous in the bedroom, and maybe he's just not initiating sexual interaction because he doesn't feel like he can produce the wow factor he once did. So it's on the women's side, how do you approach that? I think probably too often people accept it as just, oh, that's part of aging. But I think like on the men's side, you would want a woman that says it in a like, hey, maybe have you thought of, because I think a lot of men would feel they wouldn't even want to, they're too proud to say their testosterone is low or even bring that up, whereas if their spouse was supportive, they would say, if the spouse is like, hey, maybe, I've read a lot about testosterone replacement therapy, like you should at least get your blood labs and rule that out. And say it in a kind way would go a long ways. Or even, there's so many really good erectile dysfunction drugs just even on that one thing. How someone delivers that information could be a game changer to a relationship.
That also brings me to another just good question, good point, is some people may not feel comfortable going in person to their doctors to even, talk about these things. These are very, very sensitive topics sometimes, just depending on how you are and your personality. So you might not want to talk to your in-person physician. So there is telehealth, like what we offer. We offer that to where you can be at home and be able to sit and take a video call with a physician to be able to talk about these symptoms. It can be uncomfortable, but there is options, a variety of options. You can go in person to your doctor, or you can do telehealth and feel comfortable. You're in bed, you're in your office, and there's somewhere private, and you can feel like, this feels a little bit safer for me to talk about this with someone online, and that might be better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, here at DirectCare AI, we have a really simple process where someone goes through an intake to make sure they're appropriate. There's initial blood labs that are ordered. The patient would go to the blood lab, get blood drawn. Those results are received by the physician team, and they look through their intake document and their blood labs. Then the patient gets notification to schedule a televisit where they can talk through things with their physician. They come to an agreement of if it's appropriate or not appropriate. Then that medication is ordered and sent to them on a regular basis. And all of that is from the discretion of their own privacy of home or wherever they want to be. And you're dealing with someone that does this on a regular basis. I think there's a lot of trouble from at least even guys I know, I can't count how many times guys said, oh, I went to my primary care doctor and I mentioned it, but he didn't seem into it, so he said, no, I'm sure you're fine, and really kind of brushed it off. Or, oh, that's for bodybuilders. I'm not helping you become a bodybuilder. And then they felt like crushed for even asking it. So I think that's the real nice part, is you can deal with a physician that's an expert in this and deals with it all day, every day.
Yeah, I just want to say, just for anyone who's watching who's thinking, wow, that's me, I'm feeling like that, I relate to what they're saying, what would you say would be step one for them?
Yeah, like I said, first you would go and research, see if your symptoms align. I think, too few times now do people become their own CEO and sort of go and learn about things themselves. Type your symptoms. There's ChatGPT. There's, DirectCare AI has a health questions app where you can go and ask questions. If you feel fairly convinced, you can go to the DirectCare AI website, go through the intake. You can go and make an appointment with your physician. If you have a brick and mortar doctor and you're comfortable with that doctor, you certainly should go make an appointment. You could even call ahead and say, hey, is this doctor up to speed on men's testosterone replacement therapy? Could be women's hormone replacement therapy. I think, both ends. It's some doctors seem aware and others don't.
Yeah, in a study in 2025, nearly 40% of women said they were misdiagnosed when they brought it up to their doctors. So they were either treated for anxiety or depression. So just like you're saying, making sure that doctor is aware, it's good on like HRT. That way they'll be able to know how to treat you and understand the symptoms that you are having and know how to kind of relate and not misdiagnose you. So I think that's very important to do that research on that doctor that you are talking to and make sure that they are aware of HRT.
Yeah, and I think they're aware at the level of the most modern scientific evidence, right? I mean, they're up to just recently, we had the largest safety trial, heart safety trial released with data of over 5,000, I think 5,286 patients that they observed and found testosterone replacement therapy did not increase cardiac events in those patients. So, I mean, super hard to argue with such a well-done study that just recently came out. So if a doctor isn't aware of that and they say, oh, that's going to increase your risk for heart attack and stroke, you want to make sure they're well-read and up to date.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's all the questions that I had or I can think of at this current moment. Do you have anything else you'd like to add or we can touch on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to think about, hormone replacement therapy doesn't make you a different person. It really makes you who you really are. So I think some people worry about, you going to go turn into a totally different person? No. Are you going to be the you without those negative symptoms? Yes.
I definitely agree with that. So it leads me to always go get checked out. Make sure you be able to communicate, talk to your partner if you are in a relationship. And don't be afraid to, research like how he mentioned before, see what's happening, and just know the key thing is that you are not alone. That's comfort that came to me knowing that I'm not the only one going through this, regardless of age. There's people out there finding community, online community, there's people to talk to, but having that sense of comfort, knowing that you aren't the only one is a huge step. Yeah,
and I think, especially, we talk a lot about relationships because I think it's such a big part of a lot of people's lives. The importance of being aware of the symptoms and then being kind to that person, because if they're going through something, imagine they're already feeling yucky and then you say stuff in a way that doesn't feel good either. So I think it's really smart to read up. Education on things is always step number one. But then really be empathetic to your partner of, wow, they've been going through this. It isn't them just deciding to be less affectionate or, sexually active, saying things in a kind way. And I think the other thing is understanding it's a two-way street in a relationship. So one of the things we didn't talk about that I think of multiple examples of people that I've talked with where one of the partners started and it sort of unmasked in the relationship because a lot of people, when you are in a relationship, you could both be low. So now you have a man who's low, a woman who's low. So you know what? Your low sex drive is matched and that might seem fine because neither person, I've talked to people that say they haven't had sex in 6 months or 3 months. Well, that's not super functional in a relationship, but your low symptoms have matched each other. And then I talk to people who one person, a guy I work with, he said, okay, his wife went on hormone replacement therapy and started testosterone replacement and her sex drive was dramatically more. And that sort of unmasked for him, wow, I needed to go get myself checked because I couldn't, it became a struggle in the relationship and that her demand. So this mismatch in sexual drive can really drive a wedge in a relationship. But it's interesting because it can also unmask for both people the opportunity to feel better. And I think that's interesting to be aware that may be coming. So it probably makes sense when you are recommending to the other person. So as a man, if I was saying, to my spouse, hey, seems like you've been low sex drive, low energy, maybe we should both get our blood work done. It's a smart thing to bucket it together and go down the path together.
That totally makes sense. And like I said before, even if you do feel good, go get blood work done, just so you do know you have that baseline. Once you start that step, when you have a baseline to go off, so if you do eventually down the line, my levels were here, I'm starting to feel lower, let me go check. Or I was here and I'm starting to feel way better, let me go check. You always have a baseline to go off of. Having that baseline is super key.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, as we said, I mean, the moral of it is get education, be aware that help is there. I think it's super critical in the way that if you notice it first in your partner, then be empathetic, be kind, and make sure you educate yourself first. And I think it's, be aware that you both should go down the path either way, and empower yourselves to be the CEO of your own healthcare and know that you can do this in the convenience of from your own home or wherever is privately, comfortable for you.
I would like to say, everyone, thank you for watching and tuning in, and we'll definitely see you. Feel free to check us out, everything that we offer at www.DirectCare AI, and have fun.
Thank you.